Hello. So, as in previous chapters, I'm going to share some ideas with you as best as I can and invite you to choose for yourself what you make of them. And in this chapter, that's what I want to explore. You choosing what you make of things, how you read and respond to the universe generally. That you have this ability seems absolutely central to me, to what it is to be human. So I want to explain how I see that ability to make choices from a unividualist perspective and why I think it is so important if we want to understand why our lives really matter. Now, there are philosophies, worldviews, that dismiss our ability to choose what is traditionally called free will, which can be a somewhat misleading phrase, perhaps, because it's used in so many different ways. The most obvious way it's used is you do things without being coerced. You're watching this video because you have chosen of your own free will. There's no one holding a gun to your head going, you must watch this new chapter by Tim Freak. At least I really hope that's not the case. So that's one meaning. But there's deeper meanings, which is there is that your choice is not determined. Now, you've made a choice. That's beyond dispute. You've chosen to watch this, for example. But was that choice meaningful in any sense, or was it predetermined? Was it simply the way it had to turn out? And that's what really old philosophies like religious predetermination would say, that the past is known. It can only turn out one way. God knows everything. God must know the future. God knows that you would watch this video. People don't tend to go with that so much now, I'm glad to say, but it's been replaced by a kind of materialist determinism, that there's fundamental laws of physics which are rigid and govern how things work on the lowest level, and that they ricochet upwards through a chain of causality to cause everything that happens on the biological and the level of the psyche. And they are epiphenomena, they're side effects. And we think we're having free choice. I make the choice, but really it's all coming from physics. This is a really ugly idea, I think. And as I've discussed already, I think it's wrong. The fundamental reason that I don't think your choices are determined, that the future is fixed, is because I don't think anything in the universe is determined. I've discussed already that I think the universe is probabilistic, drawing on concepts from modern physics that I will return to, and we'll really explore what that means as we go through this pod book. But for now, what I've been saying is, look, the past, the pastivity, conditions the possibility for anything. So it's more likely to repeat. And it does, thank goodness. Gives us a stable universe. But it's also creative. It's always slightly different. And sometimes significantly different. So that it's not determined, it's probable. Now, the lower levels are so probable, we can pretty much count on them repeating. But as the whole universe evolves, the higher levels are far from determined, and much more likely to be the unexpected. So the deterministic view of the universe, and this captures how absurd it is for me, says if you knew the conditions right at the beginning, say, just after the Big Bang, you knew the physical conditions and the laws that applied, then you would know everything that was going to happen after that. So you would know 13.8 billion years ago that there would be a Tim Freak speaking to you on camera about to say the word cephalopod. That seems very implausible to me. What I'm suggesting is no, nothing's determined. Everything is probabilistic. Everything is the meeting of pastivity, repetition of the past, and creativity, that there's always newness. on all levels, but increasingly on the higher levels it becomes more obvious. And that's particularly obvious on the level of the psyche. So if we look at choice, it arises in the biological sphere. Before that, we could say that there's not choice really, there's reaction. Chemicals don't choose to respond in a certain way. That's the only way they can respond. But biological systems increasingly choose how they read and respond to their environment. And as we move from the instinctual passivity algorithms to the ideational ones, that range of possibility of how we can read and respond increases more and more and more. So the essential message that I want to explore with you in this chapter is, look, the reason that most of us feel that our ability to make meaningful choices is utterly central to who we are is because it is a very emergent level of the creativity that has created the whole process of becoming. And that is happening for us in part consciously. We are that process of creative becoming conscious. And that's why it feels so important, because it really, really, really is. It really, really is. So what I'm suggesting is that we're a passivity system, but not determined. So our choices of how to read and respond arise from our previous choices. They arise from our passivity. And generally that's pretty good because it allows us to function and navigate this strange being alive business. But it's not determined. It's conditioned, but it's not determined. Now, that it's conditioned is actually absolutely a good thing. Because if it wasn't, if my choices weren't conditioned at all, they wouldn't be my choices. It's that they come from me as an evolving passivity system that makes it my choice. Otherwise, it'd just be random. Even when I just said cephalopod, which was kind of random, I still knew the word. That was conditioned by my past. My body knew how to make the shape. That's conditioned by my past. I did it. I did something random-ish. So our choices need to be conditioned. Otherwise, they'd be nothing. They wouldn't be choices. They'd be just random things. But not determined. Not like, well, that's the only thing that could happen. The whole vision of the world that we get with determinism is there's only one way everything can turn out. The whole vision of the world that comes from emergentism, as I mean the word, is that no, the future is completely open. It must include the past within it, but otherwise, who knows? Who knows what will come next? Who knows what I will think tomorrow, in 5 minutes, right now? So that what I want to suggest is that the system is there's passivity. You can only think the ideas you have. But they're constantly coming into new relationships, which means they can also form new ideas. And that's how we get insight. Oh, I'd not seen it like that. Or you can take ideas in from the outside by listening to something online or by reading a book or talking to a friend. And there's new input. And now you can that will affect your current ideas and they will form new ideas. And that newness is the creative input that means it's not fixed how you will read and respond. There might be a way of reading and responding that you haven't had before. It's creative. Now, that's the creativity that's got us right the way through the whole process of becoming. But now, if you wish to, you can make it conscious. You can go, most of my choices, let them just happen. With my passivity, it's better that way. But with these important choices of how to read and respond, I can process them in high definition, which is what it is to be conscious. And I can increase the creativity. And this is the key thing I want to get across. That when we're talking about those meaningful choices, it's not like, well, are they all determined? No, nothing's determined. You have choice. Of course you do. The question is how much? You go back to a primitive life form, it doesn't have much choice. There's a few ways it can respond. By the time it reaches you, there's enormous choice for how you read and respond. And we can increase it. And we increase it by opening up the ideational system, as we've talked about before. So you're not just seeing it through a rigid lens, you're able to hold lots of ideas and to reflect on them and see things differently and let new things in and hold two possibilities at once and move between them and do all the things that allows us to evolve our ideation and to allow maximum creativity. I think of it a bit like with the gene pool. If in biology you have a big gene pool, there's much more opportunity for new genetic combinations to arise and new species, which are to thrive. Small gene pool, you don't get that so much. In fact, you get the opposite. You get deformed species. Same with ideas. The bigger the ideational pool, the more ideas can combine in interesting ways. Most of them will be not, but one of them might be. And if that happens and you spot it, you've now got your ideation is significantly evolved and you're choosing to read and respond in a new way. And it's better. So that ability to know ourselves that I've talked about already is the key here, it feels to me, to not just recognizing that we have this, what I think of as a superpower, to harness the creativity of the universe in such a way that we can evolve our responses, our reading and responding profoundly. That our spiritual journey, or that's another way of just saying our evolutionary journey on this level, is to know our pastivity more and more, and to create opportunities for creativity. And in that way, I think a good analogy again is AI, because I look at the way that I use AI. If I want to create an image, for instance, I'll give it a prompt and it'll throw up possibilities. It's creative. It's just combined things in new ways. Most of it's rubbish, but one of it might be okay. And I'll say more of that. And then it gets better. And then it might throw up something. I think, wow, never thought of that. Let's explore that. And that's how it is with my own psyche, my own ideation. I want a solution to what's the best way to think about free will. There's a lot of people say it doesn't exist. I think it does. How can I think about this in the clearest way? So I ask myself that question, and immediately, or maybe over time, sometimes quite a lot over time, it throws up possibilities, most of which lead nowhere. But I am looking to see, oh, that one, let's follow that. Oh, that one's really good. Oh, I never thought, that's a new thought. Follow that. And they develop into what has become this philosophy. So I think we're doing that. I think it's what artists do to create new art. But I also think it's what all of us do to solve everyday problems, work, family, all the challenges we face. We do that. We allow the space for creative ideation. And that allows us to choose. So inherent in what I'm saying is, look, it's not being run from the bottom. Let's just stop for a second and just finish that thought off. It's not being run from the bottom. There are no fixed laws. There's habits that have developed, or pastivity algorithms that have developed on the lowest level, but that's led to much more open systems on the higher levels, and a very open system on the level of the psyche, very creative. So the whole thing is still, and even more so, is more and more creative, actually. That's what I want to say. And the causality doesn't just go upwards. Causality works much more like our common sense says it does. And in this case, I think common sense is right, which says it moves in every direction. Yes, the physical level is affecting me. Gravity is affecting me now, stopping me flying off. Thank goodness. But the psyche is causal. It's not a byproduct of matter or the brain. It is a level of information which is having a causal effect on the other levels of information. And all this vast informational matrices is affecting itself in every way. So I am right now intending to say these words, and my body is cooperating with that, the biological level. And because I've learnt to shape my mouth in these ways, it is creating these sounds, these symbolic sounds, and passing them to you. And then, the body is manipulating the physical for its own purposes. It's breathing in oxygen and then putting it in its blood. Now, the oxygen is just being oxygen. It's following its own pastivity, but it's breathing it in, and it is being manipulated by the biological level, like the psyche is moving around the biological level to speak. And each level must work with and is limited by the pastivity of the lower levels. I can't will my body to fly, but I can will it to speak. So that's a vision of this, and this is going to be important as we go through the rest of the pod book, this multi-causal universe, not just from the bottom up. Not deterministic, not from the bottom up, but probabilistic and multi-level causality in this matrices of information on different levels. Okay, so this, you could say, okay, but even so, Tim, I'm choosing to say these things, but it's still my character. It's just that Tim would say that, wouldn't he? And that if you knew everything about Tim, you could predict what he would say. That same old idea, not from physics now, but from my own character. And I've tried to answer this already, but I bring it up again just to completely nail it, because I hear people say it a lot. Because it's the same answer that I want to give, which is, yeah, the pastivity conditions my response, and that's what makes it my response, but it doesn't determine it. It doesn't go, that's the only response possible. It throws up all sorts of possibilities, including new and creative ones, which means it can't possibly be determined. And then my system is choosing between these possibilities, this or that. I can see it this way, I can respond in this way, or completely different. And that we can, and this is the main point I want to get across, increase that creativity. That creativity which has been there right from the start of the universe. We are experiencing it. Why? Because the whole thing is a process of becoming, the meeting of the past and the possible, pastivity and creativity. And you are an evolving becoming. That's what we are. You are also the meeting of the past and the possible, pastivity and creativity. It's just you and I are conscious. The rest of the process, most of it, for billions of years, was not conscious. It's just happening. And mostly for us, it just happens unconsciously. But we can intervene and go, focus on that. And when we do, we can choose consciously, we can choose better, and we, in the process, can evolve ourselves, because now that's part of our pastivity. Now that's part of our wisdom, which enables us to keep moving on to more and more and more emergent levels of the psyche or soul. And our evolution is what we offer to the collective. And it's what we ultimately offer to the evolving supersoul. That level in which we come into communion to form a greater us, a unividual state. That's what we offer, our evolving self. And this is how we can evolve it. Which is why it is absolutely essential, and why I want to reject all those misanthropic, human-hating philosophies that degenerate, that degrade, that dismiss our ability to make these meaningful choices. So now hopefully I've put it across as best I can, and that you've got the idea. Now you get to choose. What do you think? Is it working for you? Is it not working for you? You're going to wait and see. Give it some time. Whichever you decide, it feels so good that you can decide. You can decide. Because that's your individuality in this connection that we've got between your individuality and mine. So I can pass you things that I feel are good and of value, and then you can either take them in or not. And I love that about you. In the next chapter, I want to explore something that fascinates a lot of people who live a spiritual life, which is synchronicity. How do they happen, those magical coincidences? What is it when life seems to become dreamlike, as if it's telling you something about yourself? Is that for real? And if so, how's it possible? And I also want to be clear with you about my online community. So it's really an opportunity, if you want to become part of what I'm doing, to contribute financially, whatever you want, to taking things forward. And you can engage actively with coming to the meetings on a Sunday in the evening, talking to me. You can engage with our Facebook group and so on, but you can also be a passive member. You don't need to do any of those things. You may well be too busy, but you can still feel like you're part of what's happening and contribute to it. I very much see it, it's not a Tim Freak club. It's about gathering together those people who see the value of this emergent spirituality, this way of understanding unividualism, and who want to make that transition themselves into their unividuality, and want to bring this into the world in their individual lives and collectively. So if that appeals to you, to be an active or just a quiet member, but still be part of it, then check out the International Community of Unividuals.